Hello and welcome back to my podcast. This time actually with a working title. And the working title is What Do I Know? Or what do I know? Today we're going to be talking about the topic of motivation, willpower, and procrastination. So basically this is a public service announcement. I kind of went through practices and ideas and strategies that I found helpful. And in this video, I'm going to try to kind of combine them all together, and I'm going to attack this topic of motivation from all kinds of different angles for you to kind of pick and choose from. What do you think could work for you? Basically like a menu of the topic. I do think kind of the more you can integrate an assortment of them, or like to a certain extent all of them, the easier it is to be motivated, to stay motivated, and so on. So my goal is to save you some time so that you don't have to go to all kinds of different podcasts and learn about these different topics individually. I'm kind of going to bring them together, and you can run with whatever you think works for you and basically explore that some more, or, reflect on it some more. And in my opinion, this has absolutely the potential to change your life within 1 month even. It certainly, aspects of this did for me. So, and I think in many ways, the most helpful way to kind of use these are to switch between different strategies and different mindsets and so on, and kind of just, like I said, pick and choose depending on what you need at that time. But this is supposed to be an overview so that you're kind of getting familiar and introduced to a bunch of these topics. So just very briefly, let's outline what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about the foundational aspect as far as mindset goes. Then we're going to be talking about understanding the psychology of motivation and willpower. After that, we're going to be talking about willpower and discipline, practical strategies, and then some leftover concepts that I didn't want to leave out. But yeah, basically that is what we're going to be talking about today, and I hope you enjoy it. And also I have a microphone now, and I'm holding it because I don't have a microphone stand yet, but that is the goal. So I hope the sound is better, and I hope I'll make it work in post-production, and here we go. So first, let's talk about the foundational aspects of motivation. So here we'll be talking a little bit about mindset. The first thing about mindset is adopting a growth mindset. Basically, this one is about reframing challenges as opportunities, and as opportunities to build back better. So instead of looking at certain failures, quote unquote, this is about looking at those as feedback and as lessons. Then the next one is going to be about trusting in your ability. So this is not about trusting your ability to do like the big thing that you kind of want to do or that you want to achieve. For example, if you're overweight, this is not about trusting your ability to be the skinniest, miniest versions of yourself. This is more about a task-specific confidence, as far as if you break it down into small steps, can you trust in yourself that this is actually something within the realm of doable for you? So one tip to kind of think about this in a better way is to recall specific successes that you had. So for example, this I was able to go through and learn from, so I can also trust in myself that this next other thing is something that I can go through and learn from, or even that you kind of find that extrinsically. So for example, you can think about this person was able to achieve this, so I can do the same. Like I said, not in that general sense, but more in that kind of task specific sense. Then the next part is going to be about beliefs and expectations. So this one is kind of about believing that you deserve success or in your abilities to have success. It's kind of adjacent to like when you say you need to love yourself before you can love anybody else. So if you don't really see it within yourself, then how are you going to go and pursue it? If at every given point there's like an inner critic within you that thinks that you're going to fail anyways. But also by extension, this is kind of about accepting success. A little tip that you can do for this one is use affirmations. For example, saying something like, I'm capable and deserving of XYZ. Now let's briefly go into the two different versions of motivation as far as intrinsic. So this is internal, coming from yourself, that you can provide for yourself. This can be fueled by, for example, emotions like curiosity. If you're really intensely curious about something, then that usually drives you towards that anyways. You don't need to find motivation outside of yourself. Enjoyment, if you really enjoy something, it's also easy. Or mastery. So if you're already doing something, but you have the motivation to get better at it or to master it, then it's also typically not like you have to wrestle yourself every day to become motivated. Then there's extrinsic motivation. So that's a form of external motivation. It can be driven by rewards or by punishments. So think about PE class. If you didn't want to run for the running test, but you're still running because because there is a punishment to if you don't, whether it's a social one or whether it's your grades. There can be other forms of external motivation, such as monetary. Why do you go to your job? Probably not because you're motivated out of the goodness of your heart to go every day. Or even social. Again, with that PE example, do you really want to be the one person that refuses to go for that run? You can probably get a lot of motivation just out of not sticking out of the crowd in a negative way. Then this next one is about self-responsibility. Here I'm kind of referring to what Jordan Peterson talks about, that life is not just happening to you, and nobody's really going to come to save you. Yes, you can have people that help you, but ultimately if you really adopt the fact that probably nobody's coming to save you and nobody cares as much about you than you care about you, hopefully, then you can kind of get into the mindset more of taking accountability for your actions and to kind of learn and grow to demand more for yourself. Now we're going to move into the topic of purpose and meaning. This is still part of the foundational aspects. So finding your why. This I'm referring to the concept from Simon Sinek. This is about clarity and focus. So the more clear and the more focused you are on why you're doing something, the easier it is to kind of center yourself in that. If you're, for example, in a social setting and you don't want to eat specific foods and they're like, oh, why don't you eat this? Well, for example, I don't eat gluten because it makes me physically ill. Well, that's a pretty strong reason why you're probably going to stick to that. But it doesn't have to be a health or like an actual real reason. You can also just argue it out with yourself and kind of come to a reason why you're doing something, and that will probably already help you to stick to it more effectively. And also this helps you to clarify your deeper purpose, to allow yourself to align your goals with a long-term sense of fulfillment. Then this next one is about meaning over happiness. So if you really think about happiness and what that's like and how you get it, then I think there's a certain aspect of realization to it that happiness maybe shouldn't be the goal, because happiness can be fleeting, and happiness is a quite a tough emotion to really catch and hold on to. But there are other emotions that can bring you way more sense of purpose and a more sustained sense of like, not like happiness like high highs, but more of like a cruising altitude where you are very comfortable on that level of contentment. So if you prioritize meaning instead of happiness, that can help you to sustain that even when times are tough, even if you are doubting yourself or even if you're doubting whatever you're doing, because it also provides a deeper sense of purpose, satisfaction, and it just tends to last longer. And I also think another key kind of advantage to this is that it provides more of a sense of confidence, real confidence, but I think we'll go into that next episode. And then the last part for this purpose and meaning section is doing it from love. So this is kind of related to the Tao philosophy. So this is about acting out of self-love or out of love towards others. So imagine you're a smoker. You can love yourself enough to eventually really be motivated to quit smoking, for example, but you can also love your kids or your family enough to quit smoking. So you can kind of use both or even both together. This next section is about understanding the psychology of motivation and willpower. And we're first going to be talking about emotions and behavior. And here comes good news. Basically, you can use both positive and negative emotions to kind of leverage drive and motivation. I already briefly touched on some of these as far as, for example, you can use love to motivate you, but it doesn't really matter. It can also be frustration or anger. All these can be really powerful emotions to kind of learn to transmute them and to reframe them and to use them for whatever you're trying to get more motivation to do. So for example, for me, like a certain sense of competitiveness was what really helped me to start to stick to my weight loss journey. Or for example, last year I had a lot of female rage. I heard actually female rage is back in. Side note, I was watching something last year. I'll be really brief about this side note. I heard that Charli XCX's fame is kind of like a leading indicator to the economy. Basically, she's more famous when we're going into a recession. And I was just thinking about that in the context of like female rage, like the way she stomps around on like I don't even listen to her music that much, but I sometimes see on Reels, I sometimes see like clips of her show where she's just stomping around on the stage, and I'm like, yeah, actually I understand. Like I think sometimes the more intense, more negative emotions can be even more powerful drivers. Like if you're really angry about something, well, you can kind of stew on that by yourself and let that affect you, or you can kind of use that. For example, for me, this is also partly to why I use YouTube, because I was just so mad last year that I was kind of started to not care anymore. Like don't be sad, be mad, and then learn how to use that for yourself. Or ultimately, it also means figure out what works for you. Like if you had something that you're really proud of having achieved in the past, for example, for me, there was a reference to the weight loss, then you can kind of look, okay, what emotion did I use to really help me to get motivated in the beginning and to stick to it. Like if you're somebody that gets frustrated really easily, then for example, getting to the point where you're like, no more, then that can help you become decisive or to really problem solve or to really take that action. There is one other kind of side aspect to this, I didn't know where else to fit it in, about addressing limiting beliefs and emotional traumas. So there can be a limiting aspect to it if you have certain limiting beliefs or certain traumas from your past that can kind of put a handbrake on. But at the same time, if you kind of work through those, you can also learn how to use them and let them drive you. Okay, for this next one, it's about reframing fear. Here I'm referring to kind of the concept of Mel Robbins. So this is about, again, kind of reframing fear as a sign of growth and not failure. Because first of all, you only fail if you stop. Everybody experiences, if they go for something, it doesn't matter if they're an athlete, everybody experiences certain amounts of failure. Everybody kind of has to pick themselves back up at some point. So instead of kind of beating yourself up when you're down and thinking, oh, I'm such a loser, and then stopping, if you do that, then you automatically fail. But if you use it to be like, okay, what is that teaching me? What can I learn from this? Kind of adjacent to the growth mindset, to just reframe it as an opportunity or as a sign for progress, for the fact that you are pursuing something and you are putting yourself out of your comfort zone. And yeah, your brain might react with the emotions of fear, and that's natural and that's okay. But you can transmute that energy using different techniques. For example, getting just curious about where is that coming from, or what am I scared about, and kind of working through that. Then it can again be a really powerful way of bouncing back from any challenges and to just kind of strengthen your muscle of resilience in the long term. And now this next one is about impulse control. So resisting short-term desires and temptations to achieve long-term goals. So this is not about punishing yourselves or not allowing yourselves to have nice things or to do nice things or to not reward yourself. No, this is more about if you have a certain goal, like for example, no longer drinking alcohol, and you just have the desire of going out to party and you know that you're going to drink alcohol if you're in that environment, then yeah, you can give into that, but at the same time, then you're kind of hitting the restart timer of your long-term goal. So ultimately, kind of building the muscle of saying no when you know no is the right answer, or it doesn't have to be no, but basically acting accordingly to what your long-term goals are and not doing a disservice to your future goals or to your future self. For this one, it's kind of important to learn, and this is also like a learning progress, to recognize and to limit your triggers. So you can kind of use different strategies. For example, I used to just impulse shop, not even a lot, but I would buy clothes like here and there, and just every maybe 3 times in 2 years, I would kind of clean out my closet and kind of donate the stuff that I'm not wearing. And I always recognized that some things I just bought and I would like never wear. And in order to mitigate that, because I do like to go for walks, and I also like to go for walks into the city sometimes, and I also like to kind of look at stores sometimes, even if I have no intention of buying things. And my way of kind of working around that was, I don't take my bank card, I don't have Apple Pay on my phone, like I am only taking myself. And if I really like something, then I'll just take a photo of it on my phone. And if I'm still thinking about it in like 2 days from that, and if I'm like, damn, like I wish I really had bought that, then I can still always go back. So just kind of find ways that work for you to help yourself to avoid certain impulses, and also reward that progress. Like whenever I would delete the photos of the things that I didn't end up buying, for example, I'd be like, look at me go, you know, like I'm saving money and the environment basically. All right, this next part is about willpower and discipline. So for the first part here, it's important to kind of think about the fact that you're not some kind of specific loser when it comes to willpower. No, actually willpower is really quite limited. Like even if you look at certain people who seem like they have a lot of willpower, like athletes, even if they wake up every morning at 6 a.m., they don't typically wrestle themselves out of bed every morning. You know, they don't usually fight themselves to go and do what they do, even if it's tough. But basically, they don't rely on actual willpower to get them to do. Yes, there are certain aspects and there are certain times where there's more willpower required, and there will be even times where these athletes really have to wrestle themselves out of bed, but it's not what they rely on a day-to-day basis. And it's also not it doesn't sustain you for long periods of time. So for this one, kind of Roy Baumeister, he talks about his theory of ego depletion. Like when you go to the gym, it's like a muscle that can be strengthened, but it can also be fatigued. If in one day, for example, you're taking a lot of decisions or you're exercising a lot of willpower, then typically towards the end of the day, your willpower kind of runs out. So if you have a really tough day at work and you have to make a lot of decisions and a lot of tough decisions, or you have to be really, really disciplined with yourself at work, then it can be that if you go shopping in the evening, that you are more likely to impulse buy like a donut or whatever, because you have exercised your willpower all day, and it's just kind of in our nature that that kind of mental energy can run out. So it's not a long-term strategy to just power through every single thing that you want to achieve. Instead, it's better to build the systems and the habits and to kind of automate your decision making, and also that minimize your need for constant decision making. So like I said, for this one, it's kind of about if you make too many decisions in a short time, then it can lead to poorer decision making in the moment. And it can also lead to procrastination, so that eventually you kind of refuse to make any more decisions, or you just avoid them altogether. This next one is about self-awareness. So about observing and understanding your impulses, your thoughts, your emotions, your behaviors, etc. So one aspect of this is kind of about knowing yourself. Like, don't go, if you're trying to get motivated with something that is completely against your nature or that goes against everything else that you do. Like if you're a ballerina and now you want to just wrestle yourself to go powerlifting every day, well then it's probably going to be harder for you than if you think about taking hip-hop classes, for example. Like there are certain aspects to which if you know yourself better and you go with the things that are more in line with who you are and who you want to be, then that makes it easier to stick to your decisions. And also in general, this topic of self-awareness has a lot of benefits that go above and beyond the theme of motivation itself. So another sub point for this one is kind of what Daniel Kahneman talks about. He talks about recognizing impulses and external factors that are affecting your decisions. So for example, the strategies here can be again to kind of stay curious with yourself, to don't just accept whatever you're thinking or whatever you're doing as, oh, this is just me and whoa, I'm a victim to like what I'm experiencing. But through self-talk, for example, or through just kind of actively participating in your own internal processes, you can learn to question yourself and to also to get better at forms of procrastination, for example. So if you know that you're really not in the mood to go to the gym, but you did set yourself a goal to go to the gym at least 5 times a week, for example, then you can recognize the impulse that you're being lazy or that you really are tired or that you had a really tough day or whatever it is, but learn to kind of argue with yourself. Not argue in a bad way, but like have that argument with yourself as far as, hey, I understand I'm tired. I get why I'm tired. And maybe I don't have to go to the gym right now, but don't just run with the excuse. But what I like to do in cases like that is, even if I really don't want to anymore, then I will still go to the gym and I'll walk there. And if by the time that I arrive, I still don't feel like it, like if all the tips and tricks that I use to kind of help me to be motivated or to stay consistent or to be disciplined in the moment, if it doesn't change my actual outlook or mood when I go there, then I just walk back home. At least I took a walk. Or I'll go to the supermarket instead. But basically, I don't just let myself just run with an excuse or with an emotion or a thought, but I kind of try to find ways to still challenge myself, but also recognize when it really would be pushing myself in the moment a little bit too hard. It could be for all kinds of reasons, like if I had a tough day or whatever it is. Then I have had a lot of moments where sometimes I just go to the gym, like I said, and I just walk straight back out. Like I walk downstairs, I'm like, it's too full for me, I'm still in a bad mood, I'm still tired, I just want to go home and sleep. Then I just go back home. But I will kind of mentally reward myself for the fact that I still made the effort to go and I tried, and that it's okay to experience setbacks sometimes. And at least you didn't just surrender to your limiting belief. Now let's talk about some practical techniques and strategies. So I think one of the most important ones, and we briefly touched on this already, is breaking down goals. James Clear talks about this, I think, quite well in his book Atomic Habits. Breaking down goals is one of the most important aspects. Like if you think about wanting to lose weight and you think about kind of the end goal of being the skinniest version of yourself, then that's probably quite the overwhelming thought. It's like, it can be hard to even really visualize that for yourself, especially if your reality has not reflected that at all. So instead of thinking about these huge goals that are difficult to achieve, think about the small steps that will take you there. Even people who are, for example, really successful or who are really fit or whatever, if you ask them, I don't think many people would say, yeah, I just went and did it and I just did it and I just was so great at doing it. No, people will tend to be more like, yeah, I first learned about this and then this. It's always like a journey, you know? It's always like one lesson leading to another one, or one step toward progress leading to another step toward progress. So when you start thinking about your goals in more small, continuous steps, then you reduce overwhelm. It makes it easier for you to actually take that action because it's just one small step. It also gives you like a clear path ahead, and with a sense of accomplishment along the way, basically on every step of the way. Now, for overcoming procrastination, one strategy can be the 5-second rule. So this is where you disrupt overthinking and avoidance by kind of taking action immediately. So this is about counting down from 5, for example. Like if you have to do a certain homework, then kind of zoning out from that place of avoidance and counting down from 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Just do it. Just even if it's a small step, again, just do something. Like even if you're not making huge strides, do something and do it immediately. And then another idea is based on the book that's called Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. He talks about doing the things that overwhelm you or that kind of that you've been pushing off, doing them first. Like in the day, doing them first. So if you have to do something at work, for example, and you know you're kind of avoiding it or you're kind of pushing it ahead of you, then don't do that. Try to do it at one of the earliest points that you can do it, just so that you have it out of the way, and then everything else will feel easier. Another helpful tip for this can be to block time slots. So already scheduling it in for like first thing in the morning, or first thing after you drink coffee is doing that thing that you've been pushing off on doing. Another tip for avoiding procrastination is engaging with tasks mentally. So for example, if you have to do a certain homework or you have to continue writing on your thesis, and again, you're in that mode of avoidance or of just occupying yourself with anything else, then just putting it on your screen. Just pull it up and put it on your screen. Engage with it mentally. Like just look at it. Like even if you don't mentally commit to doing something or to getting it done, whatever you have to do, but just putting it up. It's the same way that if you open your phone and Instagram Reels are open, you're more likely to scroll on Instagram Reels. So the same way, if you open your computer and you put your homework on there, then you're more likely to engage with it. And just knowing that also can help motivate you in a moment. And then the last practical strategy here is like if this works for you, then having like a certain sense of social proof in it. For example, if you're trying to go to the gym more consistently, then make it a challenge with your friends. Like let's go to the gym 3 times a week together, and we all keep each other accountable. If that's something that's worked for you in the past, then great, use that. Actually, this is the last one for this section, is using nudges. So kind of using certain little reminders. So for example, again, if you try to go to the gym, then putting your gym bag right next to the entrance door, for example, can help you just to kind of also mentally engage with it and to remind you of what you've kind of committed to doing already. And even another idea kind of in line with that is putting reminders for yourselves on certain places, like putting sticky notes on your fridge that you're trying to eat healthier and you're trying to really nourish your body in a healthy way. Then that can also help you that whenever you are maybe triggered to overeat because of certain emotional triggers, for example, that when you go to the fridge, like a past version of yourself is kind of looking out for your future self and trying to help you to make a better decision. All right, moving on to the next topic of building discipline. The first idea here is sacrificing for your future self. So in a way, this is about committing to decisions that benefit your long-term self. And this is basically like a little bit of a trade-off. Like you realize that, yeah, maybe you don't get to do in the moment what you want to do, but you're doing that because you are sacrificing for the person that you want to be in the future, or for like a place you want to get yourself to in the future, or for something that you want to achieve. One thing that really helped me to kind of remind myself of the fact that I'm doing that is using certain like phrases. For example, the sooner you do it, the longer you can benefit from it. Okay, if you're working on yourself, if you're trying to work on your communication skills, for example, then the sooner you do it, the longer you can benefit from it. So there is a purpose to why you are sacrificing whatever you're sacrificing in the moment. Then the next one, as far as building discipline, like I mentioned, willpower is limited, so it's really important to build the habits. Again, this is kind of in line with James Clear. So a few things to kind of just know to make it easier for you to think about these things is that building a habit is way easier than breaking a habit. It takes around 3 weeks to 2 months to build a habit, plus the fact that it actually does get easier. Like for me, building, for example, the habit of going to the gym, that was a little bit of a grind. Once I had my mindset right, it was easier, but getting to that point was kind of tough. But now if I'm committing, for example, to fasting for 3 days, then I have a much easier time and I don't have to wrestle myself every time, because I already proved to myself that I can be consistent and I can be motivated and I can be disciplined. So I would say like this 3 weeks to 2 months, from my experience, that is around the time frame that you need for kind of getting into that mind space and starting the journey of motivation and discipline, like in a really active participant kind of way. But don't think that you have to have like 3 weeks of consistency for every single thing that you choose to do in the future. That's not my experience. And like I said, breaking habits is much more difficult. It takes around 2 times as long. And it usually takes a lot more mental effort. Because if you can just get yourself, for me with the gym, if you can just commit to like a month of going to the gym every day, even if it's only 40 minutes, even if it's just 30 minutes, even if it's just 20 minutes, commit yourself to doing that. Then if you are consistent with that, you will notice that it becomes much, much easier to stick to it. So if you really go to the gym every day for a month, then probably at the end of that month, you'll realize that it's become a habit to you and part of you is looking forward to going to the gym. And it also builds like a real sense of self-confidence. And then this next one is about habit stacking. So basically adding new habits to existing routines. So what can help you to build a new habit can be to kind of link it to an existing habit. It's easier to do if you use logical pairing. So for example, if you want to do your skincare every evening, then linking it to your brushing your teeth every evening. So that existing habit of brushing your teeth will become the trigger for your new habit. So you don't have to remind yourself as much in the moment. So saying, for example, after brushing my teeth, I do my skincare. Or while waiting for my coffee, I will write down 3 things that I'm grateful for. Then next, we have the identity-based habits. So basically aligning your behavior with the person you're inspiring to be. One way to kind of help you conceptualize this is we're reflecting on the question of who do I want to become? So less so about what do I want to achieve, less so about some arbitrary goal or some goal outside of yourself. This is more about integrating and developing into that person that you're aspiring to be. And also habits that are tied to your personal sense of identity are usually a little bit more sustainable because they will kind of become a reflection of who you are rather than what you're trying to do. So here the mindset is kind of going from doing to being something. So instead of saying, I want to read a new book every month, you can say, I want to become a person who loves to read. Or you can also use affirmations like, I am a reader, or I love to read. And basically use thoughts like that to reprogram yourself, basically. And it can be a really powerful tool. And we will talk about affirmations at some other point in the future. Then this next one is going to be about feedback loops. So what are certain things that help you to create the feedback loop that you want to be in? For example, tracking your progress or celebrating the wins that you have can both reinforce good behavior and can help you to reward yourself in the moment when you're doing something that you set out to do for yourself. Then the next one is about triggers and anchors. This one I'm kind of referring to Chase Hughes. He talks about using certain triggers, like it can be sounds, it can be smells, it can be actions, phrases, etc., to initiate certain emotional or physical responses. So for example, that can be if you go to the gym and you want to pump yourself up to be high energy and to, really not just hang out in the gym, but to go and actually have a good workout, then using something like music to help amp you up. Like every time you're on your way to the gym, you listen to dubstep music, whatever. And you can make that you can help your brain make that association between I'm listening to this music, so I know I'm about to go and be active. But it can also be other things, like if you're learning, if you have to study, for example, then putting on focus music. That's what I sometimes do. And that setting that intention and having that reminder is going to help you to stick to it more easily. And then there's anchors. So anchors are a little bit more personal and psychological. So this can be associating a particular stimulus. It can also be music or a gesture or a phrase to specific emotional or mental states. Basically, once you have anchored that stimulus, you can trigger a desired state. It can be just one example. If you, for example, want to calm yourself, then focusing on your breath. And every time you focus on your breath, you become calmer. And just thinking about your breathing makes you more calm. So in that way, you can kind of anchor something specific that you do or something specific that you think about to help you translate it into an actual behavior. Then the next one is going to be about visualizing success. So ask yourself, for example, what would it look or feel like to be successful at XYZ? let's go back to the example of losing weight. So how would you feel like to have lost all the weight? So imagine yourself feeling healthy, feeling active, feeling excited to move your body, feeling a huge sense of accomplishment for having gone through that entire journey. All these things can help your brain kind of seek out that behavior more easily and more automatically. And also from like a manifestation perspective, it can help you to visualize success better, like visualize yourself reaching that goal. And this next one is focusing on the journey. So yes, visualizing the overall goal and all those things can also be helpful. These are not mutually exclusive, by the way. It's not like you can only use certain things and then the other things don't work anymore. But it's also not like they are all along the exact same path. These are more like the different tools that you can use for yourself. So this one is about kind of from the perspective of Andrew Huberman, talking about your brain and how dopamine works and the dopamine cycles. So instead of fixating only on the outcome, so say you're a student and you're writing your bachelor thesis and it feels really grindy at the moment and you're only thinking about that moment when you have finished it or when you do your final presentation, and after that you're going to feel so great and you're going to feel so accomplished and everything's going to have made sense. It's typically not like that. It's typically more like most of the dopamine that we get is actually from watching ourselves pursue the goal that we set ourselves out to do. So instead of idolizing the end point and thinking, oh, I'm going to feel all this great feelings at the end point, typically a lot of people will experience a dip after they finish whatever they set themselves out to do. So with that example of finishing your bachelor thesis, if you're only punishing yourself in the process of writing the bachelor thesis, with the expectation of rewarding yourself then by the time that you're finished, you're doing a huge disservice to yourself, because most of the sense of accomplishment you get is from succeeding at pursuing the goal that you've set out and from celebrating the small progresses. And there are also a lot of people that will feel like a really big dip after achieving whatever they thought was going to be the thing that's going to give them all this mental reward. So going back to the example of writing the thesis, if you think you're going to have all this huge sense of accomplishment at the end, then you may be surprised and you may realize that by the end you'll actually feel really depleted. There is a real chance that you're actually going to feel quite depressed at the end because your dopamine kind of crashes and you can feel a sense of emptiness or a sense of lack of motivation, or basically you've worked so hard at pursuing something and you've thought this was going to fulfill you, and then you realize you're not fulfilled. Could be the same thing with becoming rich. People will think, okay, I only need this much money to feel like I have made it. But typically if you talk to people who are really rich, they also don't have the sense that they have enough money. So try to avoid an all or nothing mindset. And then this last one for this video is about gratitude. Basically, practicing gratitude is really good as far as mentally rewarding yourself. And it's also a really powerful, like energetically magnetic emotion. So if you're thankful for every step of the way, for what it's teaching you, or even for the challenges, for example, that you're experiencing, then you're kind of tricking your brain or your like energy to feel or act as if you've already received it, because you're giving thanks for all the things you've already done or all the things you've already received. Basically, it helps you to reward yourself and even to be more effective at attracting whatever it is that you want to achieve to you. And with that, this concludes my overview of the topic of motivation. I hope this was helpful to you. I hope there were some things that you think are really actionable for you to do. And like I said, this is not like, I don't think anybody is perfect at any or all of these things, but this is more about having an aim and a toolkit to kind of help yourself to motivate yourself and to stay motivated. So in no way would I say, for example, if I do something now, even if I've had like 4 or 5 years of experience now with utilizing a lot of these tricks, in no way do I feel like I am succeeding or I'm perfect at any or all of these things. I just feel like I have certain things that I know work for me that help me in the moment. And also using these in a combined way. For example, when I have to motivate myself to do something for university, then putting on like a focused music and at the same time just putting it up on my screen and reminding myself that I'm doing a disservice to my future self by putting off that thing that I know that I have to do, because I understand that then it's going to be, even if it doesn't consciously affect me, it's going to be somewhere in my subconscious, because ultimately it still needs to be done. And basically using these tools as like a menu and that you can refer to in your mind to help you can be really, really effective in my experience. And Also, just learning to become more and more honest with yourself and also kind with yourself, like rewarding the things that you actually are doing well. These are all kind of reinforcing each other. And actually, once you get better at motivating yourself towards one thing, it also, with building that muscle of discipline and that muscle of how to motivate yourself, and then it becomes even easier in the future. So that feedback loop of achieving one thing or doing one thing is gonna pay you dividends. And the sooner you do it, the longer you can benefit from it. I think that was really a powerful reminder for myself. It might not be what it works for you. Maybe for you it's a little bit more experiential, or it's a little bit more social or whatever. But yeah, basically use the things that have worked for you in the past and let those kind of inspire and inform whatever you're trying to achieve next. Basically, that's it. I hope the sound of this video was better. I have to fight the urge of doing some ASMR shit. Well, I think that concludes this video. Thank you for watching. I hope this was beneficial to you. I hope you resonated with some of the things that I was talking about. If you have some additional tips or tricks that really work for you, that you've heard about, or maybe even people that you think maybe I would be interested in listening to, whatever their perspective is, then just put them in the comments. And yeah, maybe I'll find some new tips and tricks to add to my toolkit or to this overview. And all right, I'll see you in the next one.